Welcome to Professional Email Writing. I am Alice Kang, your instructor for this course. Over the 4 15-minute classes, we will look over the basic structure and etiquette required for writing emails in a professional setting. So before we begin, I want to ask you a question. Why do we need to learn emails? Why do we write emails, right? It's simple. In the global world, it is more efficient to send emails. Due to the time and space constraint, face-to-face interactions are becoming rarer and rarer. Due to time differences around the world, it just makes sense to send emails rather than letters to people. It's also more effective. According to a recent study, most people spend 2.5 hours on average reading 100 emails a day. In this sense, it could be said that the email is the communication tool of choice for most of us. Email's great because you don't have to be available at the same time as your partner to communicate. It allows us to keep projects moving when our coworkers are unavailable or on the other side of the world. It is efficient, effective, and even engaging in that you can talk to people around the globe with no time constraint. But there's just one problem. Most of us are drowning in emails. The average person using email for business receives and sends over 100 emails a day, according to research published by the Radicati Group. Also, emails are too easily misunderstood. A recent study by SendMail found that 64% of people sent and received an email that caused unintended anger or confusion. Research shows that the emotion and tone of email is only correctly understood 56% of the time. It's a 50-50 chance. That's why we need to learn how to write clear and concise emails. An email that wouldn't be misunderstood in the ocean of emails that we receive, as well as be clearly understood. So now let's look at the 7 rules of email writing that you must remember. Number 1, what does it say? Use a professional email address that properly represents your name. Set up an address that sounds professional. Don't use anything silly or suggestive. Your first initial and last name, like E or Alice A. Kang, or your full name are appropriate choices. Also, for messages related to your current job, always use the email address your employer assigned to you. However, you should never use it to send messages that are unrelated to your job. For example, if you are looking for a new one, right? Then use the personal email account instead. I also have 2 email accounts, one for spam, which is an Apple Martini, and one for business, which is a Kang Alice Gmail account. Let's look at the next one. You must always use a proper subject line. The subject line is the first thing your reader will see. You want your subject line to be clear and brief. This is the chance to catch your reader's attention, which also helps the reader to immediately know what your email is about. Without a clear subject line, our reader may not be interested in your email, and it is possible that she will not click it or read it. We will discuss this in more detail later. Also, you need to show common courtesy. Even in a world where we're rushing to get things done as quickly as possible, in order to move on to our next task, you need to take the time to use good manners in your email. Don't neglect to say please and thank you. Otherwise, your email will come off as terse and demanding. Like, do this. No, not good, right? Do this, please, or do this. Thank you very much for doing this, right? The same goes for including closings. Let's look at the next one. Also, every single word you speak or type forming an impression about building your brand. So leaving these simple pleasantries out would not give a friendly vibe to potential clients or partners. Which goes on to my next point, which is watch your tone. Tone is how you as a writer can express your attitude in an email message. It influences how it's received. You usually want to make sure to come across to the recipient as respectful, friendly, and also approachable. You don't want to sound curt or demanding, right? Also, depending on culture, life, and even the mood the person is in, your jokes may not translate well to the other. Even though you want to save time, you shouldn't use texting abbreviations in your professional email. If you text a lot, as many people do, you may be accustomed to using a sort of shorthand to speak to your friends. For example, you may be using the alphabet U or UR and PLZ instead of you, your, and please. These abbreviations have no place in business correspondence unless the recipient is someone with whom you have a casual relationship with. So in most cases, no, right? Number 5, you need to be concise. Think about it. I just said on average, a person doing business looks at 100 emails a day in 2.5 hours. If you do the simple math, that is about 1 email per 1 minute. Busy people have neither the time or the inclination to spend more than 1 minute reading an individual email, and that includes yours, right? If you want to allow your recipient to read your message quickly and still understand it, you must keep it brief. Don't leave out pertinent details, though. Make sure your message clearly conveys your reason for writing it in the first place. Nobody saves time if you end up having a back and forth while you try to explain the detail that you omitted. Next, you need to proofread. Don't forget spelling and grammar count. This is very important. It is imperative that you proofread your email carefully. Never neglect the critical step, no matter how busy you are. The things you want to relay are correct spelling and correct grammar. In addition to spelling common words correctly, you also need to spell people's names right, and including the name of your recipient and the name of your company, right? Be careful about relying too heavily on spell checkers, although it is very useful. They may not notice misspellings of words when used incorrectly. For example, a spell checker would not notice the word TO if it's used instead of to. For example, I have 2 questions for you. How do you spell this? It's a TWO, but even if you write it as TO, because there is a word called TO, people will not notice it, right? Double check spellings that you are unsure of by using a free online dictionary or online Google. They have many grammar checking sites, so you can check those for proofreading. And last but not least, always what? Include your contact information at the end of your email. For a professional email, your email signature should include your full name and your email address. If appropriate, it is also a good idea to include your phone number and company name. Not difficult. Just think about it this way. Business emails are just formal letters that are sent electronically. People want to read it fast, so be clear and concise, but still polite. Let's look at one example. What's wrong with this email, right? So Yuna is writing an email to her new business partner abroad. She is so excited to be working on this new project with him, and this is the first time she's contacting him, and his name is Peter Ha, right? We aren't going to fix it yet. I just want to see if you noticed the errors. Okay, let's read it together. So, hi, I'm Yuna is the subject, right? Let's look at it from the 7 rules, which is wrong, right? Let's practice. Dear Peter, hi, it's so nice that we work together now. I can't believe I never had to work with a foreigner before. I'm a sales manager at Daeung Pharmaceuticals. How old are you? And by the way, because of the time differences, we won't be able to call each other, but I will respond ASAP every time, Yuna Kim. Which ones are wrong? Well, first, the writer forgot to use what? A proper subject line, right? When you send an email without a proper subject line, this is what you receive. Do you know a Yuna? If you don't know, why would you click it, right? So if they don't know you very well, if you see an email named, hey, would you want to read it? No, the subject line was wrong. What else is wrong? Also, she is introducing herself formally as a manager of Daeung Pharmaceuticals for the first time. This email sounds friendly but very informal. Asking about your age also may not be okay in certain cultures as well, right? And the worst part is, she forgot to include her contact information and when he could contact her. Without this email will become useless and meaningless page for everyone, right? Because what she's trying to do is introduce herself for the first time and asking him to contact her, and there's no contact information. Ridiculous, right? So a better version would look like this. So, dear Mr. Allen with a good subject, right? Subject is Project X partner Yuna Kim, Daeung Pharmaceuticals. People will click this because this is a person that you're working with, right? Dear Mr. Allen, I heard from Mr. Dean that we will be working together for Project X project. I am Yuna Kim, Sales Manager at Daewoong Pharmaceuticals. It's a pleasure to meet you. Due to time differences, I'm pretty sure most of our communication will be done via, which means by email, but I will try to respond as soon as possible. In emergency situations, please call me at 8210-1234-1234 or send an email to my supervisor, David Kim, at dkim@daewoong.co.kr. Please let me know if you have any questions. Sincerely, with your signature. This is the modified email, right? This is the modified email that you need to write. As we have seen, this is the basic structure of emails as well. So a basic structure contains a clear subject line that we've seen, a salutation like the one we saw, Dear Mr. Kim. You need a colon here, but still. And then opening sentence, pleasantries and purpose of email. Hi, it was nice. I'm someone, right? These are the things that you use. I am writing for something. And then an email information, which is the content of email. And then a closing message, which is usually a thank you for reading, thank you for consideration, thank you for thinking about our company. And then your signature, which has to contain what? Your name and contact information, right? We will discuss this in more detail next class. But before we wrap up, let's look at the most common grammatical errors that people make when writing emails. Punctuation is so boring, right? Who cares about these pesky commas, periods, and exclamation points? We do. In the business world, they matter. And they matter a lot. Sloppy punctuation can undercut your significance, intelligence, and make people question your ability. It's sad but true. Here are 8 punctuation mistakes to avoid, and your reputation, if you avoid these, will thank you. Let's look at the first one. Run-on sentences. You would probably know what it is, but unless you read it, you wouldn't understand. So let's read this together. When there's no punctuation at all because the sentence keeps going when the writer should add a period but instead continues on and there is no end to the line and the reader is worn out but there's no period in sight, so when does it all end? You understand what it means, right? You cannot use this kind of sentences. When there needs to be a period, you have to put a period. For example, where when there is no punctuation at all, comma, because the sentence keeps on going, comma, when the writer should add a period, right? This doesn't work. You need to write commas so that people can read you clearly and concisely. As I said, emails need to be clear and concise. Let's look at the next one, which was too many commas, right? A sentence with too many commas makes our writing hard to process because we include unnatural stops in the flow of a thought, and it's frustrating for the reader. It is much more difficult to understand what I'm saying, right? Commas, when you use too many, will cut your train of thought every time and make it more difficult for you to read. Too many exclamation points and emojis. Our products are the best. They really work. Get yours today. Too many exclamation points, and especially in formal emails, overwhelms the reader and devalues each individual exclamation point. It would have been much easier if it was, I'm so happy in it. But it's, I'm so happy you are interested in our product. I will give you a discount cost today. Nothing seems significant because you're emphasizing everything, right? Be tasteful with your exclamation points. Save them only for the big points and for end of paragraphs, leading the reader on a high note. Next one. This is one of the most common mistakes. It's versus its. It is all too easy to misuse this word because the rules are very different. I don't know who is going to hurt more, you or me, and look into its eyes. Both of the sentences are wrong. How to avoid? Remember that it apostrophe s is a shorthand for it is or it has, where the apostrophe designates a contraction and it is not possessive. ITS without an apostrophe S is a possessive word. Also, you can use it in the dog lost its bag, right? In that case, it's not an apostrophe S, it's the ITS. In possessive situations, you exclude the apostrophe, okay? A simple test is to see if you can substitute the word with it is or it has. If you can, it apostrophe S is correct. If it's not, and it's talking about something that you possess or someone else possesses, ITS without an apostrophe is probably correct. Let's look at the next one. It goes on to the next part, which is the extraneous apostrophes. It's all yours. $5 off. These are all wrong again. How do you fix this, right? In these cases, you want the plural form of the word, so you just need to use an S. It's not an apostrophe S. There is no word called you are apostrophe is, right? There is no you is. It's you are. So it doesn't make any sense at all. So you have to just add an S. And an apostrophe only when you need the possessive form, such as that is my husband's car, right? Husband apostrophe S because the car is owned by the husband. Apostrophes are also used for contractions such as shouldn't and should not, but here we will just focus on this. Let's look at the next one. Colons versus semicolons. I brought three things: a toothbrush, a blanket, and a pillow, right? How to avoid this? This is wrong. You need to use a colon here instead of a semicolon because this is a list of items. Use a colon if you want to set a list of items. If you want to separate two related but distinct thoughts, so if it's two sentences, what do you use? Use a semicolon, right? Or in the case of semicolons, consider using a period instead to break the thoughts if it's two different sentences. So when you're writing a list, what you need to do? Write colons instead of semicolons, right? Next one, quotation mark placement. This is one of the most biggest mistakes that people make when they're using American email addresses because what's wrong with this? I had such a great day at work today, apostrophe, then exclamation mark. It's wrong. The punctuation is part of the text you're quoting, so the punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. I'm so happy with exclamation mark is the sentence that you're quoting, right? Note that in American English, the punctuation always goes inside the quotation mark, while British punctuated outside of quotation marks sometimes, right? So if you're on the internet, if you're sending an email to someone and you see punctuation marks outside of the quote marks, it may be British, but in a general form, in American English, we usually use it inside. So do not forget to write it inside the quotation marks, right? So that's about all that we have to cover for today. Just as Yuna wrote a message introducing herself, why don't you also try writing an email introducing yourself? Today, we looked over the 7 rules that you need to do and the 7 major punctuation errors and the email structure that you need to know in English emails. One etiquette expert said, a poorly written email can discredit your professional image. That is just as important as your business suit. The way that you carry yourself, that is part of who you are in business. So put on your best suit and shoes instead by studying with me on how to write a better email. Next class, we will learn how to write proper subject lines, greeting messages, and closing messages. I will see you next class.